Good morning, and welcome to this week's Monday Motivation. Sorry for the funny angle. I'm sitting at a funny angle, therefore you'll see me at a funny angle with a very yellow face, but there you go. And welcome to this week's motivation. And this week is for you if you have ever been affected by kind of sudden news or uncertainty. And for many people around the world, this year has kind of been around uncertainty, and for many of us here in the UK, again, that might have popped up and reared its ugly head this weekend. So if that's you or somebody you know, and let's be really honest here, I'm having so many private conversations with people who from the outside look all happy and, happy-go-lucky, but secretly or deep down, they're facing some challenges. And this is not all pandemic related. This could be around their friends and family, around health and well-being, around concerns, around mental health. So if there's one thing that I would love you to do today is to definitely share today's video, because you really don't need who around you. You really don't know who around you might need to hear some of the tips that I'm going to share today. And I'm going to share a couple of tips. So thank you for saying hello to all of you that are popping on and saying hi. And if you're happy to watch in the background and not comment, that's absolutely fine too. So the thing about uncertainty, there's so many elements of uncertainty. And I was reflecting yesterday about how I help people to navigate uncertainty. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I certainly, as a coach, and originally as a life coach, and then going on to business coaching, I definitely have some invisible tools in my toolkit that aren't just for me, but are for each and every one of you who are looking to navigate any tough times. So uncertainty can come about in the form of many different guises. And, specifically this year, uncertainty has come through not knowing things, not being able to get answers in certain situations for many people. Uncertainty for some of you have come professionally, career-wise. For a lot of you who might be on furlough, might be facing things like redundancy, huge life changes, for those people that navigate those things. And for those of you with your own business, you have been kind of in the steering seat, in the driving seat of finding more people for your businesses. So the uncertainty is kind of always there as a business owner, especially if you're a sole business owner or an entrepreneurial type business owner. Hey, good morning, Sharon. Good morning, Alan. And you are, and you're responsible basically for having people know about your business, hear about you. So what to do in uncertainty? Well, I want to say, I want to start this by saying that any form of uncertainty, regardless of what it's about, whether it's personal, whether it's for somebody else, you will usually go through a myriad of emotions. And sometimes we travel through them so quickly that we don't even really notice which emotion we're in until we're kind of reactive or doing something with it. So some of the emotions that you might go through in no particular order, and it can last seconds, minutes, days. It could be anger. You could just be angry because it affects you or affects your family in a specific way. Denial. Denial is another huge one. And we're not talking about the river in Egypt. So denial could be around really not quite believing that something's happened. I see this a lot in grief when I'm working with people. We go through waves of grief. And of course, when you look at things like job loss, redundancy, big life changes, moving and things like that, there's a certain amount of loss within those scenarios too. Losing the home that you once had, whether you're going to another home or somewhere else. Jobs and careers are a huge part of our identity. So I always say, I know, denial. Oh, the old jokes are the best, Sharon? So, you know, we sometimes feel like it's a big part of our identity, part of who we are. So no wonder we feel a bit discombobulated, hey? So this week, I wanted just to share some tips on ways to navigate, you know, these uncertain times, ways to navigate uncertainty. You know, it's part of the reason why I put events in the calendar and I stick to it. You know, Instagram reminded me 3 years ago today that I was doing a Facebook Live, and people talk about consistency. And for me, the huge reason I do this is for you know, is so that you can, you know, have something different to look at. You know, I'm not a kind of, you know, pouty, posy, selfie kind of gal, but there's just something different out there. And I also have a really strong belief that you have been put on this planet to make a difference, whether you're an employed professional, self-employed professional, doing both, thinking of doing one or the other. So I hope that I have been of service with doing these for 4.5 years or so. I hope that they've been of service to you. So first thing to do in times of uncertainty, look to your goals, look to what you want to achieve. Now, this might seem a strange thing to do in times of uncertainty, and whilst there's a really important part in absorbing what is going on for you and acknowledging what is going on for you, you don't have to take the status quo. So I'm not talking about breaking rules, I'm not talking about being disruptive or being a disruptor. I'm talking about acknowledging stuff that goes on, like, for example, you know, kids upstairs, not my kids, someone else's kids, this is a flat. You know, the kids are upstairs running around everywhere. I could throw a hissy fit and say, right, that's it, I am not going to do this Facebook Live. Or I could just accept it and let you know. You might hear some banging around, you might hear some shouting, screaming, laughing, arguing, bickering, all in quick succession, you know. So acknowledging what's going on around you and then focusing on your goals. And the reason why this is so important is because it gives you something or somewhere to focus. It could be that your goal is to look after a loved one, to look after your kids, you know, or grandchildren. It could be your goal is to look after yourself because you've realised that, you know, this has been negated in a certain time. Whatever your goal is, a goal doesn't always have to be driven, hard push. Have some goals. Now, the next thing to do is to write them down and write each goal down separately. Quite often when I'm working with clients and I'll ask them a question around something that they want to achieve or do, they'll say 2 or 3 goals in one sentence, in one cluster. So get used to writing it down. It gets it out of your head and onto paper. You don't even have to necessarily look back at them again, but getting them down and writing each and every one down gets you to see what's going on. So if you, like me, like a good stationery book, and I wish that I had brought a little book that I'm using at the moment, like 3 years after I got it from, and she's watching today, the lovely Eunice. The lovely Eunice, I met her at a conference about 3 years ago, probably a bit more than that now, and we were talking of our love of stationery, and she bought me a little notebook. And you know when you really like stationery but you don't want to use it, you don't want to get it dirty? Well, you know, in the last week I decided actually this would be perfect for writing down my goals, things that I want to do, things that I want to achieve, things that I love. And the goals can be fun and frivolous, or they can be serious. But I would recommend a mixture of all sorts of things. Fun, frivolous, you know, if you've always wanted to dye your hair pink, maybe now's a good time that you can do that, you know. So write them down and write them down separately. The next thing to do is to have clarity on them. Now you've written them down and written them down separately, you can get crystal clear clarity on what each goal is and how it might look when it's done. You know, who will you be? Like, who's the person that you are becoming in order to, you know, to create those goals? So if one of your goals is fun and fab and everything else, are you being fun and fab, or are you beating up yourself too much? Are you taking yourself too seriously? Who is the person that you become in that? Are you dedicated to making that goal happen? You know, sometimes it's dedication. I'm not talking about, you know, working 22 hours every day and exhausting yourself. it's being dedicated and focused. It might be you're going to commit yourself to like 30 minutes every day until it's done. You know, it could be one of those goals. If it's time sensitive, it might be that you just block out time in your calendar or in your diary just to make sure that you can get the thing done. So get clear on exactly what you want. Now, some of us are kind of hardwired to be a bit like, well, I want this, but I don't want this to happen. You know, me running the marathon. I do want to run the marathon, but I don't want to injure myself, and I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, and I don't want to be one of, you know, all of those things. And if that's you, write down what you don't want first. Kind of clear the cobwebs. Write down separately what you don't want first, and then say, so if I don't do this, what will I do instead? You know, if, for example, and this wasn't one of my goals, but if I'd said, you know, I want to finish the marathon in, you know, quickly. I don't want to be one of those people that takes hours and hours. Hey, morning, Gina G. I don't want to be one of those people that takes hours and hours. Then I would write on my goal list what I wanted instead. And it might not be the opposite. It might not be, oh, well, I want to do it really quickly or a specific time. It could be, I want to do it in a way that's healthy, that, you know, honours my body and helps to, well, I'm not going to say raise lots of money because that's like a separate goal, but helps to, you know, helps me, you know, to finish it healthily with a great mindset while I'm doing it or something like that. Okay, so get really, really crystal clear on that too. And then focus on it. Once you've got like your goal written down and clarity, or goals written down and clarity, once you can focus on it, what that means is that when there's a poem, the Don't Quit poem, when all around the world is losing their head, don't quit. And literally, when these times of uncertainty happens, they happen because we use the dark nooks and crannies of our brains, the part of our brain that we would normally use for creating solutions, you know, being creative and thinking of new ideas and opportunities. When we get anxious, we actually use that as a force for bad for ourselves, not a force for good. We spend the time worrying, wondering, stressed, thinking about, you know, struggling with. And when you've got your goals written down, and keep adding to them, which is why I've used Eunice's little book that she gave me, because every time something comes up, even for me, I'll add it in, you know. I won't try and do all of them at once because that would be overwhelming, but I'll add it in. And sometimes there's certain things that take priority over others. And of course, when you achieve them, you can scratch them off and go, you know, add in the next one. I read a really great book a number of years ago. It was introduced to me, and the lady in there also talked about goal setting, and she talked about having 12 goals that you'll kind of, you know, you can simultaneously work on, and if that feels too overwhelming, have one or two, and then when you get to cross one off, then you can add in the next one. So you're always working on them, always giving you something to focus on. You know, how many of us in the last lockdown said, oh, I'm going to learn a new language, play the guitar, cook more healthily, go out and walk? You know, I know that certainly in the last lockdown, I should have been doing a lot more training for the marathon than I did. And I will continue to do that. I can go outside in the fresh air still, so I will continue to do that. This gives me something to think about, something to focus, instead of sitting in the house and worrying, how long will this be? Will it be over Christmas? You know, will I get to see my friends in X place again? Will I get to travel? You know, all of those sorts of things. If we're using our mind to, you know, look for reasons or excuses or bad stuff, it clogs our minds and it's actually quite exhausting. So using what you would normally use to create anxiety, look at how you can create opportunity and focus on one goal at a time if you need to, you know. One goal at a time will help take your focus, and act in a world as if that thing has come to fruition or is a deal, done deal, you know. I was once given an experiment by a mentor of mine many years ago to imagine the day, and there's two different days you imagine. One day you wake up and you imagine a day when everything goes wrong, and guess what happens? And then the next day you think that everything goes your way, you win at everything, and guess what happens? I can tell you one of those days was much better and much more enjoyable than the other day. So this is the same thing with your goals. When you've written them down, when you're you've got them out of your head. I personally like to look at my goals on a regular basis just to keep reminding myself, because like you know, things can come and sideline us. And I think this is the reason why when the announcement was made this weekend, I was able to go, you know what, it is what it is. Let me stick my head in my goals, let me stick my head in my goals. Otherwise you could literally drive yourself crazy. So hopefully helpful. Again, you don't know who on the outside looks like they're going through brilliant times, but on the inside are screaming inside, are struggling, or worried, are wishing that things were different. So I would really love it if you could share this video. Share it on your timeline so your friends can see, but if you'd rather send it selectively to a few people who you think might need to hear this, then click the share button and send this as a private message on Facebook. You can even copy the link and share it, through WhatsApp and all sorts of cool places too, and other social media platforms too. So if this is you or somebody you know, or you're just kind of worried or concerned about them, please, for today, this message is so important. And I know it is because I'm very fortunate to get to speak to a lot of people behind the scenes of their life, and social media hasn't always been the place where people will post and say, I'm really struggling with this thing right now, I'm really worried about X right now. And then sometimes there are those people that are the be strong types, and those be strong types will always want to answer your question of how are you with, I'm fine, I'm okay, really I am, and they're not. So if you know, for example, that somebody is in a business that could be really strongly affected in the next month, or in an industry that could be really, badly affected for them, kind of don't take I'm okay as an answer. Ask them what's going on really, and direct them to this video if you don't know what else to say or how to help them. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining me on this Monday. I'm sitting at a funny angle, so I look like my shoulders are my head's growing out directly out of my shoulder. But you know what? This message is really important. So important that even though I'm trying to take more weekends off and doing that quite successfully, yesterday a lot of you were on my mind. One more thing to announce, for those of you who are business owners, if you are thinking, well, how am I going to get my message of what I do out there? How am I going to get it out into the industry? Or, people within an industry who need to be able to show up better on camera, have the confidence on camera to talk about what they do, to connect with their teams, to hold meetings or anything else like that. Send me a message here and ask for the 12 days of video confidence. It is a small course, and I have kept it at £49, I think it is, including VAT. £49 to make it accessible. You get access to that for unlimited amount of time, so you can go through the 12 days and learn some really cool and fun ways of having confidence on camera. Don't let the lockdown stop your brilliance. You can still put it out there. If you've got a smartphone and an arm and a mouth, you're good to go. If you've got someone else to hold your phone for you, even better. So hopefully helpful. Let me know, and please take care of yourself and keep your focus on the type of life and world and environment that you want instead of what you don't want. Lots of love to you. See some of you back here at 11:45 for live at 11:45. Thank you so much. Bye for now.